Thank you all for coming. I have with me Congresswoman Victoria Spartz, is that right? From Indiana, and originally from Ukraine, and she will be able to tell you more than I can about what's going on. But it's times like this that I actually miss Senator McCain the most. If he were with us, he would be up here leading the charge. And so, like many Americans and people throughout the world, it's been hard to sleep at night watching war crimes unfold on television and just feeling frustrated that you can't do more. So I'm going to take that frustration and channel it into action. There's so many tools in our toolbox as a nation and a world to fight back against Putin and his cronies. And one of the tools is the rule of law. I want to live in the world where the rule of law trumps the rule of gun. This is a defining moment, I think, for the rule of law and how it can make the world a better place. For the last 20 years plus, Putin has maintained power by imprisoning his opponents, by assassinating people who disagree with him. The Russian state has collapsed. The Duma is a puppet. The courts have been neutered. And it is now time for him to pay. The world has let him get away with too much for too long. He's stolen the Russian people blind. He's murdered Russian citizens to maintain his iron grip on the country. To the Russian people, I doubt if you can hear my words, but our fight is not with you. You're a victim of Putin as much as anyone, maybe more than most. And I just wanted to let you know that we understand the difference between the Russian people and Putin. But we're going to need your help. In bringing justice to the table, you're going to have to suffer. There is no way to bring this to heel without tremendous economic sanctions, without arming our friends in the Ukraine. But also, I want the Russian people to understand that the world will now act. The Ukrainian people are the poster child for freedom fighters in the 21st century. The reason the world is rallied so much against Putin is because of Ukraine, more than any American politician, including me. The German people have met the moment. Things are going on in the world I thought were really not possible just a few weeks ago. And I think the real catalyst for the change is the bravery of the Ukrainian people and the outrage that we have as a world against what Putin is doing. So I've been a military lawyer for 33 years, I was. And part of my job was to train our pilots. I was a member of the Air Force, Air National Guard, and Air Reserve on the law of war. We are a rules-based military. We're a military based on ethics, and we do our best, and sometimes we fail, to follow the law of armed conflict. The law of armed conflict has really been more robust than any time in history after World War II. So what I'm doing today, along with Representative Sparks, is introducing a resolution supporting the complaint filed by the Ukrainian government against Putin in the International Criminal Court alleging war crimes on his behalf. The International Criminal Court was set up during the Balkans War. There have been 161 individuals indicted and convicted, ranging from common soldiers to prime ministers and generals. The United States is not a member. We've had some problems with the court in the past. When the court tries to go after Israel or Rumsfeld here in the United States, I think that's off base. The court is designed to bring justice to those where there is no rule of law to bring justice to them. So the first thing you have to understand or make a decision, is there a rule of law in Russia viable enough to hold Putin accountable? And the answer is no. That was the same in the Balkans. So this is a good example of where the International Criminal Court, I think, should exercise jurisdiction. So I have a resolution. It's a sense of the Senate resolution. I'm sure Representative Sparks will do the same in the House, where I want the Senate to vote and speak with one voice in support of this complaint. I think the entire world, those who believe in the rule of law, need to speak on behalf of this complaint. We're not prejudging the outcome. We're just saying this is a good thing to be doing. This is a legitimate complaint in our eyes, and we'd ask the ICC to investigate. And I want to let the Russian generals and the Russian pilots know that you follow the orders of Putin at your own peril. You can find yourself in The Hague if you drop cluster bombs on civilians, if you use vacuum bombs, if you have a scorched earth policy to get the Ukrainian people to submit to your will. So the world is watching you, not just Putin. And I will do everything in my power, as long as it takes, to be a voice for justice for the Ukrainian people, to hold one of the most vicious people on the planet finally accountable, Putin and all of his cronies. Enough of the murder, enough of destruction and carnage on your behalf. There'll come a day when the rule of law will trump the rule of the gun. And that day, I hope, will come sooner rather than later. So to the American people, we are right to help the Ukrainian people in their quest for their freedom. If Ukraine falls to Putin, it will set in motion dire consequences for us as a nation. China will get the signal that they can take Taiwan. The Iranians will believe that we have no will to stop their nuclear ambitions. The converse is true. If the Chinese see the world rally around Ukraine and the rule of law being applied to Putin's war crimes, maybe they won't go into Taiwan. The only thing I can say when it comes to Putin, it needs to be personal. He could care less, in my view, about his own people, and certainly could care less about the Ukrainian people. Putin is not a patriot for Russia. If you're a patriot, you wouldn't put your people in this spot of being complicit with war crimes. If you're a patriot, you wouldn't steal your own nation blind. So I'm hoping in the coming days that we can get Republican and Democratic support for a resolution where the United States Congress lends its voice to the Ukrainian complaint in the International Criminal Court. This is a proper exercise of jurisdiction. This is what the court was created for, because there is no venue absent this court, in my view, to hold Putin and those who follow his orders accountable. I think our voice will matter. I'm hoping the generals are listening, and I'm hoping the pilots are listening. I've got a call with our allies today. I'm trying to get parliaments throughout the world to follow our lead here, to send a clear signal to the Russian military what will happen if you go down the road of committing atrocities against the Ukrainian people, and to let Putin know the world is no longer indifferent to you. History repeats itself for good and bad. We tend to forget the lessons of the past. Appeasement of evil never turns out very well, and we've done that for too long when it comes to Putin. Too many people have been imprisoned. Too many people have been poisoned. What he did in Aleppo, in Idlib, Syria, where he just absolutely decimated civilian populations, bombed hospitals, not much happened. That needs to change. And when the lessons of history are learned for the good, we're stronger as a world. We'll look in the past and find people who stood up to tyranny, and over time, their actions aged very well. Those who stood up to Hitler, those who stood up to oppression. History will be your judge, and you will be judged well. The Ukrainian people represent the best of mankind at this moment. People going to the streets, grandmothers with rifles, defending the future of their grandchildren. The best person to speak about what's going on in Ukraine is the Congresswoman from Indiana. She is an American of Ukrainian descent who is going to rally our nation to the cause of her home country. She's a member of Congress. Her voice is unique in the times in which we live. She has family members in the crosshairs of Putin's war crime activity. She has skin in the game.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate what you do. It's a very challenging times. I get a lot of texts and communications. I feel like I thought it used to be when we dealt with Afghanistan, because being an immigrant, I represent the whole country. Now I represent every Ukrainian, Polish, or Lithuanian, Eastern European American. So my team I appreciate their hard work. They've been trying to be very helpful to me. And but the situation is pretty bad. And I don't use words lightly. I'm always, as I say, that is not a war. It's a genocide and destruction and killing of people, because it is. You see what's happening right there, unfortunately. You know, Putin army, since they realize that they cannot get it easy, that people don't want to be with them, they want to be free, they now start killing civilians. You see what's happened in the city of Kharkiv. They are using cluster ammunition and vacuum bombs. This city probably has majority of population actually Russian. They don't care about the people. They don't care if they're Russian or Ukrainian. They do not want to have free people. He cannot stand that somebody can stand up against a dictator and actually win. So he sent the police. First time, 100 of them got killed. And then he thought, okay, but next time, 10 million show up. And when millions show up, very difficult to kill all of them. Now he decides, since millions are against him, he's going to send his army to kill them. City of Chernihiv, they couldn't take the city. They are shelling it non-stop, all direction. My mom called her friend and she said, like, oh my gosh, she tried to escape in some village, but she has a cat at home. So she has like, cat is probably dying. I'll try to go through some bridge. So she ran through that bridge, got into the city, and she was trying to get some medicine at the pharmacy, and shells are coming, people standing by the buildings, and all cannot get water and anything. The city is under blockade. You cannot get anything there. Her other friend has her daughter with 2 little kids, since her apartment was destroyed, now moved to her. And she sits with her with 2 little kids and shelling nonstop. She called my grandma's neighbor. Her daughter was in the village that got destroyed and was forcing people to stand in front of the tanks. But it's interesting that all of these people, and I don't know if I would be in a situation I would have that much strength. All of these people say, you know what? We don't cry anymore. We don't cry. Just give us some guns and we'll fight. And we're going to win. And he understands that. So he's destroying more cities. He just destroyed the city of Kherson, and it's awful. He's coming to the city of Kiev. And I give you one message. I just got it about an hour ago. It's from some village. His friend is trying to escape with kids, and they actually now shoot some of these people that try to escape. They send special groups to kill. Women and kids are trying to escape. So she was saying something that she just sent to me. They sent all this footage, and honestly, if I watch it more, I will not sleep at all. And that's from her brother. She talks to her brother, and he says, they burned down my house, my wife with kids barefoot, and she has a temperature. She ran away. I don't know if she's alive or not, because they were shooting at us, walking around by our house like it belongs to them. Then he used bad words. I cannot use it in the public record. They're killing peaceful people. Kids are scared to death. They're just killing us like we are animals. It's awful. This is criminal. These people cannot get away with that. And I hope to see how the international community is going to vote today. And I hope you're going to also cover that. Do they have a backbone to actually stand up to the evil what they were created for, or they're going to be cowards and just try? We have a lot of economic reasons, but when the time comes tough, when this happened like that with the whole world, that changes the whole world and is threat to all of us, you have to some leadership and backbone and step up. And I think we as a country need to see who are our friends, who are not, and who is willing to stay with democracy and make a policy decision based on that. And I hope you're going to cover it in the same way and see what other countries are doing, because the whole international community need to condemn this. This is criminal. This is pure killing of individual. It's not a war, and I appreciate Senator doing that, and I hope you help support and also bring this to attention of American people. I have a lot of footage. I cannot even put it on my Facebook or Twitter, but if we can, people need to see what's happening. This is just brutal. I mean, this is real bad for all of us, and I hope these people can survive. I know that they will. They win that war, but hopefully, with less losses, and it could happen. And I hope our leadership and we in Congress can help them too. Thank you, Senator.
Questions?
Senator Graham, Comey with Newsmax. How is Congress supposed to meet this moment right now when we haven't seen bipartisan consensus on legislation and Democrats and Republicans can't seem to agree on where the humanitarian and the defense aid is going to be coming from?
Well, I think I hope we can find common ground that they need military aid, right? They're fighting like hell, so let's give them the equipment to fight. Their economy is in tatters. They're running out of food and fuel. Listen, it's an emergency, but the Democratic effort to take the supplemental out of the top line of the defense budget makes no sense to me, because that hurts our ability to defend ourselves. I'm hopeful we'll get there, but I had discussions last night with several Democrats about this front. There are many fronts that we can fight on here. We want to hurt Putin and we want to help the Ukraine, right? Well, how do you help the Ukraine? You give them food and you give them fuel, you help their economy, you give them weapons to fight with, but you also rally around their complaint against Putin being a war criminal. How do you hurt him the most? Subject him to the rule of law. There is no rule of law in Russia. There is no other place to take this complaint to other than the International Criminal Court. So I'm hoping that Republicans and Democrats will speak with one voice when it comes to the rule of law, that what Putin is doing is a war crime. So there are 4 types of crimes that the International Criminal Court deals with: genocide, crimes against humanity, violations of the laws or customs of war, that's my lane, grave breaches of the Geneva Convention. I promise you, there's ample evidence that there's a breach of the Geneva Convention, that the customs and laws of war are being violated, that cluster bombs dropped on civilians is not legal in this world. Now, the rule of law and war are always difficult. People say, why do you even think about law when it comes to war? Because that's what makes us different than other groups. That we do believe in America following the law of war, and we should hold those accountable who do not. So the answer to your question is, I hope we can find consensus around a package to help the Ukrainian people. But this, to me, is a layup. This is maybe the most effective thing we can do, is to let the generals in the army of Russia know you follow Putin's orders at your own peril. There were 161 people prosecuted in the Balkans conflict, from privates to prime ministers, generals included. I want the world to rally around the rule of law. And here's what happens when you let a man get away with murder and theft and war crimes for 20 years, you can't be surprised he keeps doing it. Enough. Stop it. End it.
time when
Yeah.
Republicans want
Do you want to say
money.
anything? Okay.
And then also for the Ukrainian aid possibly.
I just think it's political malpractice for us not to get our crap together up here. Okay, number one, we're in a shooting conflict with Ukraine is a democracy under siege by a war criminal, Putin. Let's stop talking. I appreciate what the administration did with $350 million of military aid. That's not enough, so I'm hoping we can pass a budget by March 11th. A continuing resolution destroys our military's ability to operate. There is no good excuse for Republicans and Democrats not to come together over this. None.
Two quick questions. First, do you have Democratic support for this particular effort? And number two, as we continue to see the devastation coming out of Ukraine, testimonials just read by Representative Sparks, do you think there will be a change of opinion in the U.S. and NATO allies about the use of force, the no-fly zone, and things like that, to prevent this devastation?
I don't know where that takes us, but right now, Ukraine's not a member of NATO. Article 5 doesn't apply. What can we do? We can help them with armaments. We can help them with food and fuel, and we can also help them with our moral voice. The rule of law is a very effective tool here if it will be applied by the world writ large. I don't expect China to take up this cause, but I do expect Western democracies to champion this complaint. So I've had discussions with 3 or 4 Democrats. They seem very interested. I'm open-minded to what to do and how to do it. But I was thinking last night, of all the things that we could do that we're not doing, this is the most obvious to me, is to say after 20 years of war crimes, you're going to finally be held accountable. And this complaint in the ICC, if the world rallied around it, may not change Putin's mind, but it may change some people that are, actually carrying the war out.
Would you try for a live UC, just real quick?
I'm trying to get consensus.
Okay.
So I'm going to introduce this thing pretty soon, and we'll try to build consensus.
Sir, if there is an omnibus package that includes this aid, how quickly does the aid get to Ukraine once this is finally passed? As you mentioned, the conflict is happening right now.
I want to let her. So, okay, number one, the $350 million in military aid apparently is there. They just don't have enough javelins. They don't have enough stingers. They're willing to fight. But let's don't fool ourselves here. The might of the Russian army is incredible compared to that of the Ukrainian. The will of the Ukrainian people and their cause is far more just than the Russian cause. But here's what I would expect. An insurgency, if some of these cities fall, they're not going to stop fighting. Putin is going to have Afghanistan on steroids. So this is going to go on for a while. So as you see the war crimes unfold, as he gets more desperate, because the Ukrainians have done a hell of a job of stopping the Russian military to this point. But I expect scorched earth to be the new strategy, that where apartment buildings are collapsed and indiscriminate bombing. As you see that happen, we need to get international law organizations on board behind this complaint. We need to get Western democracies, their parliaments acting like us, telling the Russian generals, the Russian oligarchs, that we're going to look to you, that we're not going to give you a pass here, and let Putin know we're not going to give him a pass.
Senator Graham,
Where's the News Nation guy?
That was me.
Okay, so I honored my commitment to you. Yeah.
Senator Graham,
Would you like to say anything?
Well, I can just add related to what you mentioned about, our engagement in the conflict. I just want to tell you, the more the territory Ukraine they absorb, the closer they get to our NATO allies like Poland and Baltics, the risk of direct engagement will escalate significantly. I mean, right now, what we need to do to maybe work with some allies and also us to provide some safety zones, because it's humanitarian crisis or humanitarian corridors, so people can get safely evacuated. But it's very dangerous. That's why it's important for Ukrainians to be able to stop. It's important for us. Also, if we create Syria and Afghanistan in the middle of Europe with terrorists from some Russian regions that even try to go through our border now, We know that. I've been on the border 3 times, and we have a huge challenge out there. I hope President Biden actually keeps his words to secure this border, because it's a huge issue. This is life and death issue, similar what in Ukraine. That will pose a lot of risk to us and to Europe. So I think it is good for all of us to try to help Ukrainians to defend the country and hold the territory, because that's been escalated further and can have ripple effects and unintended consequences, where it puts them in a much tougher position than even we are now.
Yes.
Senator Graham, Prime Minister from Insider. As you mentioned, the U.S. has had a rocky relationship with the International Criminal Court, and former President Trump even levied sanctions against that body.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that the fact that the U.S. isn't even party to the court, and the fact that we have this long history with them, doesn't that undermine the credibility of a resolution like this? And doesn't this show why it's important for the U.S. to participate in these kinds of multilateral institutions for when flagrant violations of international law
Yeah.
like this take place?
Well, the problem with the court, I think there was an effort by some to hold Rumsfeld accountable as a war criminal. We have a very robust rule of law system in America. Nobody's above the law. Everybody's being investigated. President Trump is being investigated by multiple organizations. Israel, that was also an effort by the International Criminal Court. There are IDF members who get prosecuted at times for unlawful use of force. No, this is the Balkans. This court doesn't make sense when it comes to America or Israel. It makes perfect sense when it comes to places where there is no rule of law. So I can discern as a lawyer that it makes sense here, doesn't make sense there. This complaint, I think, is legitimate. It doesn't mean I'm going to join the International Criminal Court anytime soon, but as in the Balkans, where there was no rule of law, where the generals who ran the concentration camps wound up going to jail, if you don't have a venue like this, there is no place to hold Putin accountable. And that's the point, and I hope people will understand the point I'm trying to make, that now is the time to hold him accountable. This is a proper form, a good form, and if we give him a pass on the war crimes that are being committed in front of us all every night on television, I can only imagine what China will think. When it comes to dictators, you need to make it personal to them.
Thank you, Senator. Alexander Nazarian, Yahoo News. Do you envision any situation in which there are American boots on the ground, not in NATO, not in Romania, not in Germany, but in Ukraine?
I think the president said that we will not go in on the ground. No-fly zones would create potential military engagements with Russia. No, not right now.
And can I ask one more? Yesterday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said he dismissed sanctions. He said, we don't care.
Yeah.
Do you think that's bluster, or do you think they really have sort of insulated their economy in a way that maybe...
So, I'm not Dr. Phil here about Putin. I've never met the guy. I know he has a very big table, which is kind of weird to me. I don't know what your house is like, but 100 yards away you can talk to him. So all I can say is I judge him by his actions, and I'm not surprised he's doing this because he's gotten away with it before. They bombed Aleppo into smithereens. They killed refugees crossing into Turkey and Idlib, Syria, and we all complained. They poisoned, opposition figures, people who spoke out, and we expelled diplomats. This is really the 30s all over again. Here's what I believe. He has a pair of twos if you play poker, and we got a full house. His economy is tied to oil and gas exports. What if we crush the oil and gas sector of the Russian economy? Every barrel of oil coming out of Russia has blood in it. What if we increase natural gas delivery to Europe? The Germans, in addition to increasing military spending, are going to create 2 terminals to receive natural gas outside of Russia. What if we created 4 or 5 terminals to send natural gas from the United States to Europe? That would have a significant impact. So I think it is bluster. I think the Russian people are losing their life savings. I think their economy is in a death spiral, and if we went after Russian oil and gas and increased natural gas flow to Europe, that would be a lethal combination for the Russian economy. But one final thought. This, I think, will do as much as anything. Holding those who are following Putin's war crimes plan accountable, his generals, and he as an individual, making it personal to them, will probably do as much good as anything else.
Sir, last thing, I'm so sorry. You referenced appeasement and you referenced the 1930s. Are you comparing Putin directly to Adolf Hitler?
No, I think he's more like the Balkans. We can't, we throw the Hitler thing around all the time. Hitler was in a league of his own, but it is more like the Balkans. I can say that over the last 20-something years, Putin has been a war criminal. He has indiscriminately bombed civilians, right, in Syria and other places. Chechnya, he just leveled the place. He's stolen his people blind. He's probably more like the Balkans.
Is there a growing consensus, sir, in the Senate to revisit the issue of sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline?
I think we want to be as hard as... I think they went out of business. Good job, Ted. I think there's a growing consensus in the Senate that this is a defining moment in the world. She said it better than I could ever say it. If he gets away with this, if this becomes Syria where everybody gets really upset and mad, and John McCain's out there championing the Syrian people, and they wind up getting crushed and we move on, we'll pay a heavy price for this. There can be no moving on here. This can't be Syria. Assad's still in power, right? Now we're talking about actually dealing with them. We cannot do that again. When it comes to Putin, enough is enough. This is the moment, folks. This is the opportunity to change the world for the better. He's exposed here. He's exposed economically, he's exposed militarily, and he's exposed as an individual.
Can I just add? I also want to add we cannot also be hypocrites and just say that Germany should do it. We're still importing Russian oil. So if we want to really mean it, we should look how we're going to open up our capacity and not have a terrible policies we have right now that made us more dependent on our adversaries. And we actually, utilize our oil and gas industry to help to keep the peace of the world and stop buying oil from Russia. Because when you go there, when I talk to German ambassadors, she said, well, Victoria, we have problems, but you guys too. You imported a lot of oil. And I really was like, okay, I guess you're right. So we cannot be hypocrites. We also need to do what we mean and what we say. And I think that's important for us because energy is the biggest issue, how he's now paying for killing Ukrainians. Yes.
I'm going to do two more.
What do you make of former President Trump calling Putin a genius?
I think that was a mistake. I mean, I think I know what he was trying to say, going into the Donbass. But no, let's just make it clear. Putin's not a genius. He's a war criminal.
Yeah, I just want to clarify on the co-sponsors because you said you're in talks with
Yeah.
some people. Has anyone actually signed on yet?
No, I haven't introduced it yet. I got a draft, and I'm using you as a prop here to get out to my colleagues and the world that there is an idea that has yet to be utilized, and that is the rule of law front. We're going to send arms to the Ukrainian people. I'm convinced of that. Economic aid. We're going to continue to ratchet up sanctions. The sooner we get to oil and gas, the better. But the one area that I think we haven't spent enough time is holding Putin and those who carry out his war crime orders accountable in an international tribunal. This is a moment in history that we need to take advantage of. This court, while it has flaws, is the perfect venue because there's no place in Russia to hold him accountable. I am convinced that if the world spoke with one voice here and let the Russian military know that you commit these crimes at your own peril, and we're not going to forget like we did in Syria, that we can maybe see cracks in Russia. One last question.
Do either of you have plans to go to the region to get a better assessment of what's happening on the ground?
Well, I'm going to start a phone blitz today. I'm calling the British ambassador, and I'm going to call some of our allies and say, would you please get behind this complaint? Because if we give voice to this complaint, and international legal associations, you need to speak up. I think if we can make it real to the people around Putin that we're not going to ignore your crimes, we're going to hold you accountable. Yeah, Poland would be a good place to go. The Polish people, those in that area, have really stood up and met the moment. That's why we need an aid package, not just for the Ukraine, for Poland and all the surrounding neighbors who have actually taken Ukrainians with